Last summer, I decided to take my students camping. I thought it would be fun and a great way to get them away from screens. The campsite was in a national park, surrounded by tall pine trees and a beautiful lake. When we arrived, it felt peaceful. We set up our tents and gathered around a campfire as the sun went down. Everything seemed okay at first. That first night, while chatting and roasting marshmallows, I heard a faint rustling in the trees. It wasn't loud, but I stopped. I thought it might be raccoons. The students laughed, but I noticed some nervous glances. They were uneasy. The next day, we went hiking. We tried to shake off the weird feeling, but that night things got stranger. As we settled by the fire, I heard whispers. They weren't clear, more like the wind playing tricks. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, but I felt a chill. The students complained about nightmares. They said they heard voices mixed with their dreams. Each night the whispers grew louder. I felt eyes watching us. It was unsettling. One student, Amy, said she felt like someone was standing over her when she slept. I didn't know how to help. On the last night, while packing to leave, it felt like the forest was alive. The whispers had turned into something I could almost understand, but not quite. I could feel a weight on my chest. I tried to focus on getting home. Just as I picked up my backpack, a rush of cold air swept past me. The whispers turned into a loud noise, hard to figure out. I felt my heart race. It was hard to breathe. The forest felt wrong, and I wanted to leave. Then I heard it clearly. A soft voice. My name whispered in the darkness. I turned around quick, but there was nothing. All the students had gone silent. They could feel it too. I felt panic rising in my throat. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice shaky. They nodded, eyes wide. Something was out there. I didn't know what it wanted, but I felt it wanted something. I was scared. The trees felt closer, their branches like fingers reaching for us. We gathered our things, ready to run. The fire flickered and shadows danced around us. Just then we heard a loud snap of a branch. We all jumped. I looked toward the sound, but nothing was there. My stomach dropped. That's when I realized we weren't alone. Shadows lurked at the edge of the firelight. I could barely make out shapes moving. The whispers returned, louder, like a flock of voices rising into a scream. I felt frozen. I couldn't move. "This way!" I yelled, grabbing Amy's arm. We ran, not looking back. I didn't care about the tents or the gear. As we fled, I could still hear that soft voice. "Come back." It echoed through the trees, chilling my bones. We stumbled back to the main road, our hearts pounding. We finally made it to the parking area. The car felt like a safe haven. I looked back at the woods, and for the first time I felt relief. But deep down, I knew we had disturbed something. I could still hear the whispers calling us. We spent the ride home in a heavy silence. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the rustle of shifting bodies. Amy sat in the back seat, staring out the window, her face pale and haunted. I stole quick glances at my other students, and I could see the fear lingering in their eyes too. It was as if the whispers had followed us, hanging in the air. When I got home, I tried to shake off the feeling. I told myself it was just the stress of the trip. I expected the kids to forget about it, but they didn't. The nightmares continued for a week. They texted me late at night, sharing strange dreams and odd occurrences. One boy said he thought he saw something move in his room at night. I didn't know how to help them, or myself. A week later, I sat down to watch a documentary about national parks. I hoped it would help me understand what had happened to us. As I flipped through channels, a familiar scene flashed on the screen. It was footage of our campsite, complete with shots of the lake and those towering trees. My heart raced. Then I heard it. A voice on the show mentioned legends of spirits that roam the woods, protecting something ancient. The narrator spoke of strange phenomena experienced by campers. I felt a chill run down my spine. That's just a story, I told myself. But doubts crept in. What if there was some truth to it? I pulled out my phone and messaged Amy. I figured if anyone could handle a little investigation, it would be her. "Hey, did you want to go back to the park?" I typed, my hands shaking slightly. She replied within seconds. "Are you serious?" I don't think I could go back there. I understand, but what if it's just a story? Maybe we could find out what really happened. It took a few days, but finally she agreed. We planned to head back with a couple of other students. I figured if we went during the day, it might feel different. The following Saturday, we met at the park entrance, hearts pounding in a mix of excitement and dread. The sun was bright, and the air felt warm against my skin. As we entered the park, the trees stood tall and imposing, casting long shadows on the trail. We reached the campsite without incident. I felt a sense of nostalgia mingled with fear. Memories of laughter and terror clashed in my mind. We set up a small picnic, hoping to lighten the mood. As we sat, I shared what I had learned from the documentary. The legends seemed to interest my students, but I could see the unease returning. It wasn't long before the whispers returned, low and distant. "No," I whispered, my heart racing. I looked at Amy. "Do you hear that?" She nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like it's calling us." A sudden rustle came from the trees. Before I could even react, I saw a flash of movement. Something darted through the brush. Panic surged through me. "Let's go," I shouted, standing up. But before we could move, a loud crack echoed through the trees, and then everything went dark. The power in the air shifted. I could feel it. Fear washed over me as I clutched Amy's arm. "We need to leave now," I urged. But as we turned to run, I saw it. A figure in the shadows, standing completely still. It seemed to be beckoning to us. My breath caught in my throat. What do they want? I wondered, frozen in place as the whispers grew louder, enveloping us once again. The figure in the shadows loomed, tall and motionless. A wave of dread settled in my stomach. I wanted to turn and run, but something held me there, like the whispers wrapping around my senses. I could barely breathe. "Do you see that?" I managed to whisper to Amy. Yeah," she stuttered, her grip tightening around my arm. "What is it?" The whispers surged, and I strained to hear beyond their rhythm. I thought I caught words, vague and distorted, like syllables being pulled apart. It was unsettling. The way the figure stood, it was almost hypnotic. Without thinking, I took a small step forward. The closer I got, the more I could make out its shape. It was dressed in tattered clothing, almost blending into the darkness around it. I felt the urge to reach out, to understand what this apparition wanted. "Don't," Amy cried out, pulling me back. "We shouldn't approach it." I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. What if it's trying to communicate? Just then the figure moved. It swayed slightly, a motion that felt unnervingly alive yet detached. Suddenly, it pointed with a slender finger. The direction it indicated was deep into the woods. My heart raced. "Let's get out of here," one of the other students shouted, breaking the trance. That snapped me out of my daze. I turned, realizing how much time had passed. "Run!" I yelled, urgency spilling from my lips. The fear propelled us forward. We took off down the trail, hearts pounding in unison. Behind us, I heard a mix of fleeting footsteps and escalating whispers. I didn't dare look back. The weight of the forest pressed in on us as branches snagged at our clothes. The only goal was to escape. Somehow we reached the parking lot. Breathless and frantic, we stumbled towards our cars. I glanced back one last time, half expecting to see the figure emerge from the tree line. No sign, just the shadows dancing in the waning light. "What the hell was that?" Amy gasped as we slumped against the car, trying to catch our breath. "I don't know," I admitted, my mind racing. "But we can't ignore this. That figure, it wanted something." As we drove away from the park, I could feel the tension lingering in the air. I stole glances at my students, their faces pale and scared. I had a feeling this wasn't over. Later that night, I searched through my phone for more information. Legends, stories, anything that could provide clarity. As I sifted through various articles, one stood out, detailing the very woods we had just visited. They spoke of something lost, a protector of the forest seeking help from the living. My breath hitched. That couldn't be the case, could it? I started typing again, a new question forming in my mind. What did we stumble into? Then I noticed a notification flash on my phone, a group text from the students. I opened it, dreading what I might find. Guys, I keep hearing whispers outside my window. Is anyone else hearing things? A chill ran down my spine. I wasn't alone in this. I typed back quickly. Me too. Let's meet tomorrow. We need to figure this out. As I hit send, a sound from the backyard caught my attention. A faint, echoing whisper. My heart raced again. I wasn't ready for what came next. The next day felt like an eternity. Each tick of the clock pulled me deeper into a web of uncertainty. I gathered everyone at the community center. A part of me hoped someone would have a rational explanation, something I could cling to. Instead, the mood was heavy. Amy arrived early, her demeanor shaken. "I couldn't sleep last night," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I kept hearing those whispers. They felt like they were calling my name. "Same here," I admitted, rubbing my temples. "We need to talk about what we saw." The rest of the group trickled in, each looking like they had been through a storm. Several students mentioned hearing the whispers, and a few had even seen shadows outside their windows. Fear was palpable in the room, spiraling into restless speculation about what we had experienced. "I did some digging," one student named Marcos said, pushing his glasses up nervously. "I found something about the woods. Apparently people have gone missing there." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward. "Somebody wrote that the figure is a lost spirit. It's supposed to guide people who need help, but no one really knows what happens to those who follow it." Silence hung in the air. Everyone exchanged wary glances. "What should we do?" Amy asked. "We need to go back," I said without thinking. I could almost hear my heart thumping against my ribcage. If it did want something, we owe it to ourselves to find out. "Are you serious?" Another student, Jenny, exclaimed. "You can't be serious. What if it's dangerous? We could get hurt." I understood her concern, but something compelled me. We can't just ignore it. Besides, we'll be together. We'll look out for each other. As we discussed logistics, a sense of dread settled over me. I wasn't sure where that need was coming from, but it felt like something beyond me was pushing. We agreed to head back to the woods that evening, just before sunset. When the sun began to dip, casting the world in hues of orange and purple, I felt myself grow more anxious. I encouraged everyone to stay close, using the comforting comfort of numbers to mask my own fear. Arriving at the familiar clearing, we stood in stillness, the air thick. I moved toward the spot where we had seen the figure. "Why are we here?" Marcos muttered. His voice was shaky. "Just give it a second," I replied, trying to sound confident. Then, out of the silence, came the whispers again. They echoed through the trees, a cacophony that chilled my bones. Panic slipped back into my throat. "That's not just the wind," Amy said tightly, grasping my arm. "No," I said. "It sounds like it's getting closer." Suddenly the figure reappeared, but this time it was clearer, its outline sharper against the fading light. "We need to leave." A voice among the students broke the spell. I felt frozen to the ground. There was urgency, but I couldn't pull myself away from the figure. That's when I saw it. A faint, flickering light beyond the figure deep in the woods. A glimmer of hope or a warning? I could hardly tell. "Help me," I whispered, hoping for a sign. I grasped Amy's hand tightly, unsure if we should run or approach. The whispers grew louder, almost beckoning. As the whispers enveloped us, I felt an urge to step forward. The flickering light danced in the distance, pulling at my curiosity. "Should we go towards it?" I asked, my voice wavering. "What if it wants us to follow?" Jenny exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. "We should leave now." But I couldn't shake the feeling that we had to uncover the truth. I glanced at my friends. Their faces reflected varying degrees of fear and doubt. "I can't explain it," I said, my breath hitching, "but it feels important." Marcos shifted nervously. "Just be careful. Whatever is happening here isn't normal." With a nod, I took a shaky step toward the light, half expecting the figure to step aside. Instead, it seemed to grow more defined, revealing an ancient tree behind it, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly. The air crackled, and the whispers doubled, turning into a chorus that was both inviting and foreboding. "Look!" Amy pointed, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. "The symbols, I've seen them on that website I found. They're markers of lost souls." "Lost souls?" I echoed, my mind racing. "What does that mean?" Before she could answer, the figure moved, gliding toward us. Our hearts raced. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline kicking in as fear took hold of my every thought. But as I turned, something compelled me to look back one last time. The figure was closer now, the fading light revealing a face. It mirrored my own, pale, wide-eyed, and filled with yearning. I stumbled back, adrenaline surging through me like electricity. "Why does it look like you?" Amy breathed, staring at me in horror. I don't know," I stammered, barely able to grasp how to process any of this. "Maybe it wants something from me?" The whispers shifted again, morphing into words that pierced the noise. "Find me. Find the truth." "Enough!" shouted Jenny, her voice cracking. "We can't stay here. We're not safe." Before I could respond, I felt a cold wind whip through the clearing. It swept around us, the whispers growing frantic. "Help! Help! Help! Let's go!" Marcos yelled, urgency in his tone. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me back toward the path we had come from. We all turned and ran, my heart pounding harder with each step. The woods felt alive, shadows moving in tandem with our frantic flight. Just as we thought we had made it, I heard a loud crack as something crashed through the underbrush behind us. "Go, go, go!" Amy cried. And then, just as I glanced back, I saw something flash in the fading light. The tree, the symbols, and the figure standing still, watching us leave. As we burst onto the pathway, gasping for breath, I felt the weight of the night pressing down on me. What had happened? Why had it looked like me? My heart raced, not just from the fear, but from the gnawing realization that this was far from over. We reached the edge of the woods and paused, looking back. But there was nothing now. Just darkness, engulfing the trees like a consuming shadow. "What do we do?" Jenny panted, her face pale. "We need to figure out what it wants," I said, somehow knowing that our night in the woods had opened a door we couldn't just close. But as we turned to leave, the whispers echoed one last time in my mind, and I felt a cold finger trace my spine. "Find me." The next day we met in my backyard. The sunlight was bright, but it felt wrong. A nagging chill clung to my skin from the night before, and I could see it in my friends' faces too. We settled under the old oak where countless memories had been made, but today it felt different, heavy. "I can't stop thinking about that tree," Amy said, breaking the uneasy silence. "Those symbols, we need to find out what they mean." "Or we could just forget it all," Jenny suggested, her voice trembling. "It was terrifying, we almost didn't make it out." Marcos adjusted his glasses, glancing nervously between us. "I'm with Amy. We have to look into it. What if it's a warning, or a way to communicate?" I nodded slowly. "Let's check that website you found." As I said it, an image popped in my mind, my reflection in the figure's face. I shivered. If it's connected to that tree and the symbols, it could explain everything. We all pulled out our phones, fingers fumbling as we searched. I found the website first and read the text aloud. It says those symbols are linked to a legend about souls trapped in the woods. They're said to lure people in, looking for someone to free them. "And what happens if you can't?" Jenny asked, a new wave of panic evident in her voice. "I don't know," I admitted, my stomach sinking. After a moment of silence, Marcos exclaimed, "Look! There's a forum here. People have reported strange encounters in these woods." His eyes widened as he scrolled. "Some even claim they've seen shadowy figures and heard whispers." I couldn't shake the sense of dread building inside me. What if it's not just a legend? What if it's real? Before we could discuss it further, my phone buzzed. A new notification flashed on my screen. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. "I saw you at the clearing. You're not safe. Find me to understand." What the hell? I read aloud, my voice shaking. Everyone leaned closer, eyes wide. "Who is it?" Jenny asked, panic creeping into her tone. "I don't know," I replied, feeling a knot twist in my stomach. Could it be the figure? I'm not going back there, Jenny blurted, backing away slightly. I can't. I shared a look with Amy and Marcos. We need to go. This is connected. We have to know what it wants. Marcos nodded slowly, biting his lip. But what if it's a trap? Then we'll figure it out together, I said, forcing confidence into my voice. We can't let fear control us. As we started to make plans to return, I felt an odd sense of urgency. It was like a beacon calling me, pulling me back toward the woods. I glanced at my phone again, the message lingering on the screen, heavy with unanswered questions. Everything suddenly felt electric. Just as I was about to suggest we leave soon, the wind picked up outside. A swirling gust crashed against the window, rattling the glass. Did you feel that? Amy asked, her eyes darting to the window. That's when I noticed it. A shadow flitted across the yard, barely visible in the sunlight. My heart raced, and instinctively I moved closer to the door. Something's out there, I said, panic rising in my chest. Without thinking, I opened the door and stepped outside. We all followed, the chill of the air kissing our skin. I looked around frantically, but whatever it was had disappeared. Did you see that? I whispered, a new wave of fear crashing over me. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented. The darkness felt thick, wrapping around me like a cold blanket. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes, but nothing shifted. My heart pounded loudly in my ears, drowning out the world around me. Guys, I called out, my voice sounding distant and fragile. Where are you? There was no answer. I turned in circles, the chill creeping up my spine. My phone must have died. I couldn't even see the screen. I took a shaky breath, trying to stay calm. The last thing I wanted was to panic. Just then, I heard it. A whisper floated through the darkness, soft and low, like someone calling my name. Ashley. The voice was almost familiar, but the edge of fear kept me from moving towards it. Is that you? I asked, my throat dry. Marcos, Amy, Jenny? I strained to listen, hoping for a response, but the darkness swallowed the sound. My stomach knotted tighter. I tried to remember our plan. We'd all agreed to stay together, not to wander off alone. Panic surged again as I replayed the last moments before everything went black. Stop it, I muttered to myself, forcing my legs to move. You need to find them. I shuffled forward, unsure where I was heading. Unseen branches snagged at my clothes, making me jump. My heart raced again, pounding against my ribcage. That's when I heard it. A rustle, followed by laughter that wasn't mine or my friends'. It sounded off, distorted, echoing like it came from somewhere long ago. I froze. My mind raced. Was it a trick? Something trying to lure me deeper? Hello? I called, voice shaking. If you're playing a prank, this isn't funny. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I thought of the figures in the woods, the warnings from the forum. What had I dragged my friends into? Suddenly, a light flickered on in the distance, slicing through the dark. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted, trying to see more clearly. It looked like a lantern swinging side to side. I started toward it, hope battling with fear. As I drew closer, the laughter stopped, replaced by heavy silence. My steps faltered as I neared the beam of light. Just then, I spotted something on the ground, symbols carved into the dirt, identical to those on the tree. My heart raced faster. This had to mean something. I reached for my phone, desperate for light, but my hands trembled too much. As I knelt to see the symbols better, the light flickered, and I felt a presence behind me. Instinct kicked in. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the looming trees, dark and shapeless. My breath quickened as I realized I was utterly alone. Then the laughter resumed, echoing around me, growing louder. My skin prickled with fear as I scrambled to my feet, eyes darting around. Guys! I screamed, sprinting toward where I thought my friends might be. Panic pushed me forward. The laughter continued, a mocking sound that clawed at my sanity. As I ran, I could hear their voices, my friends calling out to me, but it was almost as if they were in another world. I needed to find them. I needed to understand what was happening. Then, right before I crashed into a tree, I saw it again. The flickering lantern light. I reached out, and that was when I heard it. The whisper again, dark and scraping against my mind. "You're too late." I stumbled back, my legs giving way as I fell into the dirt. The laughter melded with my own growing despair, drawing me in until I lost everything else, swallowed whole by the woods. I lay there, the cold dirt sticking to my skin, heart thrumming. The laughter faded, leaving an eerie stillness behind. It was as if the forest held its breath. I pushed myself up, wiping my hands on my pants. I needed to keep moving. Any longer here and I'd lose my nerve completely. The lantern's light still flickered from a distance, beckoning me closer. Against my better judgment, I stood up and took hesitant steps toward it. The symbols still haunted my mind. What did they mean? My friends were out there somewhere, and I had to reach them. As I moved forward, the anxiety clawed at my throat. I glanced around, half expecting to see something lurking behind the trees. The darkness felt alive somehow, as if it were watching me. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the thought. I couldn't let that fear swallow me. I finally broke through a thicket of branches and stumbled into a small clearing. The lantern was there, swinging gently from a gnarled branch, casting flickering shadows that danced on the ground. But there was no one else. My heart sank. "Where are you guys?" I took a step further into the clearing and gasped. Scattered on the ground were clothing items, my friend's jackets and Amy's red scarf. Panic surged past my fear as I knelt down, feeling the fabric between my fingers. Something wasn't right. I looked up, my breath quickening. There was a tree at the edge of the clearing, and something was carved into the trunk. It looked like faces, twisted and tortured, lined up like a grotesque gallery. I could feel a heavy weight in my chest, like the forest was pressing down on me with its secrets. "No, no, no," I muttered, shaking my head as I stood up. I couldn't just stand here, I had to find them. I turned back, but hesitation gripped me. It was as if the forest pulsed with a dark energy, urging me to stay. Suddenly I heard a cry, my name called out in desperation. "Ashley!" It was faint, almost lost within the thick expanse of trees, but it was unmistakable. "Jenny! Jenny!" I shouted, my voice breaking through the suffocating silence. I followed the sound, running deeper into the woods, dodging branches that reached out like hands. "Where are you?" I yelled, each step heavy with fear. The laughter returned, echoing mockingly around me. I could feel it, someone was toying with me, leading me further into this nightmare. As I pushed forward, I tripped over a tree root and fell hard onto the forest floor. I cried out, pain shooting through my knees, but before I could catch my breath, something flickered in my peripheral vision. I turned my head just in time to see a figure disappearing behind a tree, its outline blurred and indistinct. "Wait!" I screamed, scrambling to my feet. I felt the dread in the pit of my stomach growing. I had to know who, or what, that was. I darted forward, but then I heard it again, the whisper that chilled my blood. "You're too late. They're mine now." The words echoed in my mind, and panic crushed me, forcing me to turn back. I didn't know what I was up against, but I had to get out before it was too late. But as I sprinted away, I realized the woods were shifting, closing in around me, trapping me in a dance of shadows. Something was very, very wrong, and I could feel the darkness creeping in, ready to claim me next. I stumbled through the underbrush, heart racing. The forest twisted unnaturally, every shadow appearing darker than the last. I could barely breathe. The laughter, that mocking laughter, echoed in my head, taunting me. "What do you want?" I gasped, forcing my voice to break through the fear. There was no answer except the rustling of leaves and the occasional distant snap of a twig. I paused, my senses heightened. The forest was alive, but not with the comfort of nature. It felt like something was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. I scanned the area, searching for any sign of Jenny. A flash of panic gripped me as I thought of her. The cry for help echoed in my mind, pure desperation lacing every syllable. "I have to find her," I whispered to myself, urging my legs to keep moving. With every step, the atmosphere intensified. I knew I couldn't go back to the clearing. The sight of those clothes rattled me, reminding me of how easily things could turn. I kept going, driven by the thought of my friends. I called out for Jenny again, but my voice cracked. It felt weak against the growing darkness. And then I froze. A sound. It was faint at first, like the whisper of a child, but it grew clearer. "Ashley, help me." My blood ran cold. It was Jenny's voice, but it sounded different, distorted, almost as if someone else was speaking through her. "Jenny," I shouted, feeling the pull of her voice dragging me deeper into the woods. I forced myself forward, driven by a mix of dread and determination. The sound was guiding me, yet a deeper instinct told me to turn back. This place was twisting everything I knew. The trees began to close in. I heard them creaking, their branches swaying like arms reaching out for something. I swallowed hard, pushing aside the image of those faces carved into wood. I couldn't think about that now. The path narrowed, and I could see a faint light flickering ahead. Was it a porch light? Hope surged in my chest. I raced toward it, stumbling over roots and tripping against underbrush. But as I neared the light, it suddenly vanished, plunging me back into darkness. Nothing but silence surrounded me as the last remnants of light faded away. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. "No, come back," I cried, fear swelling in my throat. Then I heard it again, the whisper, closer this time. "You shouldn't have come here." I twisted around, but the voice came from all directions. Panic surged in my chest as I raced forward, not knowing which way to go. All I could hear was the rustling, confused murmurs wrapping around me like a cocoon. That's when I saw it, a glow flickering not too far away. It pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat, but it was not the glow of a lantern or a campfire. It was something far more unsettling. My heart dropped as I recognized the shape forming within it. A face. It was twisted, angry, and full of shadows. I stumbled back, realizing with a knot in my stomach that whatever had taken my friends wasn't finished playing with me yet. I turned to run, but my feet felt anchored to the ground. The shadows were closing in, and the forest around me began to pulse with a dark energy, almost alive. I was stuck in a nightmare, and it was just beginning. I forced myself to move, to break free from the invisible grip of the shadows. My heart thundered in my chest as I fought to tear myself from this encroaching darkness. I turned, sprinting back in the direction I hoped would lead me to safety. I couldn't think about where Jenny and the others might be. I just had to survive. As I ran, the whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a storm, foreign voices mingling together, a cacophony of distorted pleas and demands. Help us. Find us. Release us. Each word felt like a cold blast against my skin, chilling me to the core. I stumbled, hitting the ground as a rush of panic propelled me forward. Then I caught a glimpse of it again, the flickering light weaving through the trees like an erratic heartbeat. It was a beacon of hope, or a trap. I had no choice. I had to follow it. I pushed myself to the limit, my breath coming in ragged gasps, limbs heavy with exhaustion, but I couldn't stop. The remnants of laughter trailed behind me, confusing my sense of direction. What would happen to me? Would I be another lost soul in this twisted wood? Finally, I broke through a thicket, landing in a clearing that left me breathless. The ground felt eerily still beneath me. I stood ready to scream for my friends when I noticed something on the other side. A massive tree loomed, its trunk marked with those same haunting symbols. A flickering light danced at its base, revealing a broken lantern whose glass lay shattered. "Jenny?" I called, my voice trembling. I felt a shudder of fear course through me. "Marcos? Amy?" The forest seemed to answer with a hushed silence. Perhaps they were already gone. Curiosity and dread warred within me. I stepped cautiously toward the glowing symbols carved into the bark. I could feel the energy pulsating from them, but it wasn't friendly. It felt alive and hungry. The inscription, whatever it meant, probably held the key to everything. But as I reached out to brush my fingers against the carvings, the darkness shifted again. The air grew thick, and I heard their voices, flickers of my friends' laughter echoing off the trees. My heart raced. No, I can't give in, I thought to myself. In an attempt to ground myself, I called out again, I'm coming for you, just hold on. But while hope hung in the air, uncertainty loomed over the clearing like a storm cloud. A cold sensation gripped me. Watching, the figure emerged closer than before, the shape indistinct, but the energy was almost palpable. Its presence exaggerated the whispers, transforming each syllable into something tangible. You cannot leave, it hissed, a guttural sound that froze me in place. I had no choice. I backed away from the tree, ready to flee before it could close in. With newfound determination, I turned, tearing through the underbrush, branches clawing at my skin. The whispers morphed into strings of frantic voices urging me to stay, to listen, but I couldn't hear anything through the pounding in my ears. As I burst into motion, deeper into the woods, I glimpsed shadows darting beyond the trees. The figures were hard to make out, but they seemed strangely familiar. I felt a flicker of movement in my periphery, a fleeting recognition. My heart raced even faster, desperation driving me onward. What had I unleashed? The woods thickened, becoming a maze of entangled branches and ominous echoes. Each time I looked back, the light flickered further away. Was it a promise of safety or part of the trap? The answers hung just out of reach like the branches above. Find us. The soft whispers of my friends rang in my mind, thick with anguish. We need you. They were fading, and I felt helpless, trapped in this nightmare. Suddenly a rustle burst through the silence. I spun around. There, emerging from the shadows, were my friends, haggard and pale, their clothes torn, faces marked with terror. Guys! I shouted, rushing forward, but they backed away as if they were scared of me. Their gazes were distant, their expressions unreadable. Don't come closer, Amy's voice rang out, carrying a desperation that shook me. You can't. You shouldn't be here. Confused, I halted. What are you talking about? I thought you were— The forest is claiming us, Marcos interrupted, breathless. You need to leave. Now. What? My heart twisted painfully. I'm not leaving without you. As I closed the distance, shadows swirled around them, shapes growing larger, looming behind them. The whispers sharpened, merging into a single guttural chant. They were demanding, insistent. Join us. No, I shouted, forcing myself forward. We'll figure this out together. But the darkness surged, wrapping around my friends. They struggled, but it was too late. The shadows rippled, and behind it, the figure emerged once more defined, more threatening. Its face morphed again, closer to mine, the features distorted as if it were a dark reflection of my own. I stumbled back, horror coursing through me. You're too late. I squinted against the chaos. There had to be a way out. Please, I begged, my voice breaking. I'm not leaving you behind. With one desperate push, I lunged at the shadows, feeling the pull on my very essence. If they were trapped, I couldn't walk away. I had to fight whatever this was, and I could feel the energy around me begin to shift. Find us. The whispers grew into a roaring cacophony of noise, and I felt reality slip away. I reached out, but as I did, I realized the truth. The forest was a living thing, hungry and insatiable. It yearned for the lost. It claimed its own, and didn't want to let them go. The last vestiges of hope faded, as that familiar face emerged from the darkness one final time, beckoning me towards the heart of that eternal mystery. Then everything went black. I woke up on the forest floor, disoriented but alone, the sun filtering through the leaves above. Everything felt wrong. The outlines of trees seemed to shift and bend. Guys! My voice was hoarse and unsure. I staggered to my feet, heart racing, hope battling with sheer terror. Had any of it even happened? I looked around, desperate for answers, but the woods were silent once more, shrouded in a heavy, unnatural unease. I stumbled forward, still calling their names, but with each step deeper, whispers echoed faintly from behind me. Help. Find. The sound snaked around me, wrapping tighter with every movement. I finally reached the clearing where the ancient tree had stood, but it was just an empty space now, a vacancy shrouded in shadows. The symbols remained etched in my mind, remnants of forgotten lore. but the air crackled with energy. It had shifted, and I could still feel something pulling from the depths. My heart sank as I processed a new truth. I might have escaped, but the lingering essence of the woods and its secrets remained, woven into the fabric of my story. A tale forever marked by whispers, shadows, and unanswered questions. And somewhere in the depths of the woods they waited, lost to the night, yet always tantalizingly close. I turned back towards the path home, clenching my fists tightly, uncertain if I could ever truly leave it behind.